The dietary guidelines recommend that we try to choose meals or snacks that are high in nutrients but lower in calories to reduce the risk of chronic disease. By this measure, the healthiest foods on the planet, the most nutrient-dense, are vegetables, containing the most nutrient bang for our caloric buck. So what would happen if a population centered their entire diet around vegetables? They might end up living among the longest lives in the world. Of course, anytime you hear about long-living populations, you have to make sure it's validated, as it may be hard to find birth certificates from the 1890s. But validation studies suggest that indeed, they really do live that long. The traditional diet in Okinawa is based on vegetables, beans, and other plants. I'm used to seeing the Okinawan diet represented like this, the base being vegetables, beans, and grains, but a substantial contribution from fish and other meat. But a more accurate representation would be this. If you look at their actual dietary intake, we know what they're eating from the U.S. National Archives, because the U.S. military ran Okinawa until it was given back to Japan in '72. And if you look at the traditional diets of more than 2,000 Okinawans, this is how it breaks down. Only 1% of their diet was fish. Less than 1% of their diet was meat, and same with eggs and dairy. So it was more than 96% plant-based, and more than 90% whole food plant-based, very few processed foods either. And not just whole food plant-based, but most of their diet was vegetables, and one vegetable in particular, sweet potatoes. The Okinawan diet was centered around purple and orange sweet potatoes. How delicious is that? Could have been bitter gourd or soursop, but no, sweet potatoes. So 90+% whole food plant-based makes it a highly anti-inflammatory diet, makes it a highly antioxidant diet. If you measure the level of oxidized fat within their system, there's compelling evidence of less free radical damage. Maybe they're just genetically have better antioxidant enzymes or something? No. Their antioxidant enzyme activity is the same. It's all the extra antioxidants they're getting from their diet that may be making the difference. Most of their diet is vegetables. So 8 to 12 times fewer heart disease deaths than the U.S. You can see they ran out of room for the graph for our death rate. 2 to 3 times fewer colon cancer deaths, 7 times fewer prostate cancer deaths, and 5.5 times lower risk of dying from breast cancer. Some of this protection may be because they're only eating about 1,800 calories a day, but they were actually eating a greater mass of food, but the whole plant foods are just calorically diluted. There's also a cultural norm not to stuff oneself. The plant-based nature of the diet may trump the caloric restriction, though, since the one population that lives even longer than the Okinawa Japanese don't just eat a 98% meat-free diet, they eat 100% meat-free. The Adventist vegetarians in California, with perhaps the highest life expectancy of any formally described population. Adventist vegetarian men and women live to be about 83 and 86, comparable to Okinawan women, but better than Okinawan men. The best of the best were Adventist vegetarians who had healthy lifestyles too, like exercising non-smokers, 87 and nearly 90 on average. That's like 10 to 14 years longer than the general population. 10 to 14 extra years on this earth from simple lifestyle choices. And this is happening now, in modern times, whereas Okinawan longevity is now a thing of the past. Okinawa now hosts more than a dozen KFCs. Their saturated fat tripled. They went from eating essentially no cholesterol to a few Big Macs worth, tripled their sodium, and are now just as potassium deficient as Americans, getting less than half of the recommended minimum daily intake of 4,700 milligrams a day. In 2 generations, Okinawans have gone from the leanest Japanese to the fattest. As a consequence, there's been a resurgence of interest from public health professionals in getting Okinawans to eat the Okinawan diet too.
The Okinawa diet describes the eating habits of the indigenous people of the Ryukyu Islands belonging to Japan, which is believed to contribute to their exceptional longevity. It is also the name of a weight loss diet based on this. People from the Ryukyu Islands, of which Okinawa is the largest, have a life expectancy among the highest in the world, although the male life expectancy rank among Japanese prefectures has plummeted in recent years. Okinawa had the longest life expectancy in all prefectures of Japan for almost 30 years prior to 2000. The relative life expectancy of Okinawans has since declined, due to many factors including westernization. In fact, in 2000 Okinawa dropped in its ranking for longevity advantage for men to 26th out of 47 within the prefectures of Japan. Japan has the highest life expectancy of any country, 90 for women and for men, 84. Compare this to the USA where the average life expectancy for women is 81 years old, and 76 for men. There are more than 400 centenarians in Okinawa. Although there are a myriad of factors that could account for differences in life expectancy, cuisine could be the largest factor. People from all around the world have tried to Okinawa diet to reap its health benefits, believed to be because it is nutritionally dense yet low in calories. The traditional diet of the islanders contains 30% green and yellow vegetables. Although the traditional Japanese diet usually includes large quantities of rice, the traditional Okinawa diet consists of smaller quantities of rice. Instead, the staple is the purple-fleshed Okinawan sweet potato. The Okinawan diet has only 30% of the sugar and 15% of the grains of the average Japanese dietary intake. Okinawan cuisine consists of smaller meal portions of green and yellow vegetables, fish, relatively smaller amounts of rice compared to mainland Japan, as well as pork, soy and other legumes. Pork and fish are often served in broth with a variety of ingredients and herbs. The center of the Okinawa diet is the Satsuma sweet potato. The sweet potato also contributes the self-sufficiency of the island. Contrary to the regular potato, the Okinawa sweet potato does not have a large effect on blood sugar. Not only is the potato used but so are the leaves from the plant. The leaves are used often in miso soup. The Okinawan bitter melon is proven to have some anti-diabetic effects. In Okinawa the bitter melon is called goiin and is served in the national champuru. The bitter melon is effective in regulating blood sugar similar to the sweet potato. The traditional diet also includes a tiny amount of fish, less than half a serving per day, and more in the way of soy and other legumes. Pork is highly valued, yet eaten very rarely. Every part of the pig is eaten, including internal organs. Between a sample from Okinawa where life expectancies at birth and 65 were the longest in Japan, and a sample from Akita Prefecture where the life expectancies were much shorter, intakes of calcium, iron and vitamins A, B1, B2, and C, and the proportion of energy from proteins and fats were significantly higher in Okinawa than in Akita. Conversely, intakes of carbohydrates and salt were lower in Okinawa than in Akita. The quantity of pork consumption per person a year in Okinawa is larger than that of the Japanese national average. For example, the quantity of pork consumption per person a year in Okinawa in 1979 was 7.9 kilograms, which exceeded by about 50% that of the Japanese national average. The pig's feet, ears, and stomach are considered healthy everyday food. The dietary intake of Okinawans compared to circa 1950 shows that Okinawans consumed fewer total calories, less polyunsaturated fat, less rice, significantly less wheat, barley and other grains, less sugars, more legumes, significantly less fish, significantly less meat, poultry, less eggs, less dairy, much more sweet potatoes, less other potatoes, less fruit, and no pickled vegetables. In short, the Okinawans circa 1950 ate sweet potatoes for 849 grams of the 1,262 grams of food that they consumed, which constituted 69% of their total calories. An Okinawan reaching 100 years of age has typically had a diet consistently averaging about 1 calorie per gram of food and has a BMI of 20.4 in early adulthood and middle age. In addition to their high life expectancy, islanders are noted for their low mortality from cardiovascular disease and certain types of cancers. Wilcox compared age-adjusted mortality of Okinawans versus Americans and found that, during 1995, an average Okinawan was 8 times less likely to die from coronary heart disease, 7 times less likely to die from prostate cancer, 6.5 times less likely to die from breast cancer, and 2.5 times less likely to die from colon cancer than an average American of the same age. The traditional Okinawan diet as described before was widely practiced on the islands until about the 1960s. Since then, dietary practices have been shifting towards Western and Japanese patterns, with fat intake rising from about 6% to 7% of total caloric intake and the sweet potato being supplanted with bread. This shifting trend has also coincided with a decrease in longevity, where Okinawans now have a lower life expectancy than the Japanese average. Another low-calorie staple in Okinawa is seaweed, particularly konbu or kombu. This plant, like much of the greenery from the island, in protein, amino acids and mineral iodine. Another seaweed commonly eaten is wakame. Like konbu, wakame is rich in minerals like iodine, magnesium and calcium. Seaweed and tofu in one form or other are eaten on a daily basis. According to gerontologist Kazuhiko Taira, the most common cooking fat used traditionally in Okinawa is a monounsaturated fat lard. Although often called a saturated fat, lard is 50% monounsaturated fat, including small amounts of health-producing antimicrobial palmitoleic acid, 40% saturated fat and 10% polyunsaturated. Taira also reports that healthy and vigorous Okinawans eat 100 grams each of fish each day. Turmeric is prevalent in the Okinawan diet. It has been noted throughout history, especially for its health benefits. The Okinawan used turmeric as a spice and also as tea. Turmeric, like many herbs, possesses antioxidant properties and anti-aging properties. Moreover, turmeric has a connection to mental health and dementia. Consumers are less likely to develop mental health illness in later age. However, there are no double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled, peer-reviewed studies showing that consumers of turmeric or any other herb are less likely to develop mental illness at any stage of life. Overall, the diet leads to many benefits seen among people of Okinawa. These include little weight gain with age, low BMI throughout life, and low risk from age-related disease. Not only is the diet healthy in preventing disease, many of the foodstuffs contain combative ingredients as well. As mentioned earlier, the diet is rich in ingredients that supposedly possess anti-aging and antioxidant properties. However, no ingredients or foods of any kind have ever been scientifically shown to possess anti-aging properties. Research using 100 items from the Okinawa diet shows that some of the diet contains anti-obesity properties or anti-obese activity. The diet consists of a relatively high energy intake, and contains similar foods to the traditional Okinawan diet. The principal focus of the diet consists of knowing the food energy density of each food item. The proponents of this diet divide food into 4 categories based on caloric density. The foods less than or equal to 0.8 calories per gram which one can eat freely without major concern. The lightweight foods with a caloric density from 0.8 to 1.5 calories per gram which one should eat in moderation. The middleweight foods with a caloric density from 1.5 to 3 calories per gram which one should eat only while carefully monitoring portion size, and the heavyweight foods from 3 to 9 calories per gram which one should eat only sparingly. Caloric restriction (CR) or dietary restriction (DRIVE) are helpful tools in understanding age and diet-related health complications. In the 1972 Japan National Nutrition Survey, it was determined determined that Okinawan adults consumed 83% of what Japanese adults did, and that Okinawan children consumed 62% of what Japanese children consumed. Today, the difference in life expectancy between Okinawan and mainland Japanese is decreasing as the Okinawan are losing their dietary advantage. Recently, there is a decreasing trend in the life expectancy in Okinawa. This is evidenced by low birth weight, poor lactation, and the fact that the life expectancy for Okinawan men is lower than the national average. Leborg poses that the Okinawa diet has more of a deleterious effect than beneficial one, arguing that the low protein intake can cause harmful effects in later generations. Research done on animals showed that individuals with a lower protein consumption may be more vulnerable to pathogens. However, Gavrilova and Gavrilov reject this claim, arguing that dietary restrictions are a valid method for humans to extend their lives and that Okinawa has a naturally low infectious load. They instead hypothesize that the decrease in life expectancy has been due to westernization and erosion of the traditional diet. After World War II, Okinawans started to consume more calories. This in large part was due to the westernization of the diet, such as with the rapid spread of fast food places. The spread of primarily American fast food chains was linked with an increase in cardiovascular diseases, much like the ones noted in Japanese migrants to the United States. Okinawa and Japan have food-scented cultures. Festivities often include food or are food-based. Moreover, the food in Japan tends to be seasonal, fresh and raw. Portion sizes are small and meals are brought out in stages that starts with appetizers, many main courses including sashimi, raw fish, and suimono, soup, sweets and tea. Since food culture is linked to ancestral traditions, the food culture and presentation is preserved, passing low-calorie food from generation to generation. A belief still prevalent in Okinawa is the healing power of food. Food is regarded as medicine which helps contribute to the longevity of Okinawa. The concept of food is medicine came to the island from China.